Hi everyone, a very warm welcome to each of you. Today I came with another topic, plant development. This is the part of developmental biology of CSI and NET syllabus. So what we have to study here, let's see. We have to study about the embryo sac development and double fertilization. Then embryogenesis, symmetry in plants, seed formation and germination. Then in part D, organization of shoot and root apical meristem, shoot and root development, leaf development and phyllotaxy, transition to flowering floral meristem and floral development in Arabidopsis and Antirrhinum. This Antirrhinum is snapdragon. Okay, so let's begin with embryo sac development and double fertilization. This one. So before I start with the topic embryo sac development and double fertilization, I will give you some introductory idea about this topic. Then we will go a little detailed in it. So let's begin. So we all know that angiospermic plants are the flowering plants. Okay, angiospermic plants are the flowering plants. Okay, like the fertilization happens in animals. The same process, like the quite similar process, is seen in plants also, where the male gametes and the female gamete will fuse and will form zygote. Zygote will form embryo. Embryo will form seed. Seed will give rise to seedling, and the ultimately whole plant will develop. Since we are talking about angiospermic plants, the plant which is formed will show flowering. Clear? Now, this embryo which is formed, this embryo is a polarized embryo. Okay, that means this embryo has a polarized organization. The apical part of the embryo will form the shoot, and the lower part of the embryo will form the root. Clear? Now, we need to also discuss about the life cycle of angiosperm. So, angiosperm life cycle is haplodiplontic. That means the haploid phase of alters with the diploid phase. So what it is we will discuss. So we need to know that flower have four important parts. I have written that because that it will save our time. So four important parts also known as holds. Okay, what are the four holds? Sepal, petal, stamen, pistil. Pistil is also said to be as gynoecium and stamen is also said to be as androecium. This stamen or androecium is the male reproductive part and gynoecium is the female reproductive part. Okay, so they are the reproductive organs. Stamen and pistil are the reproductive organs. So stamen consists of what? Stamen consists of anther and filament. Okay, this anther is a spore producing organ. Anther produces what? Anther produces the spores named microspores. Another reproductive organ which is the female. So anther is the male one and pistil is the female one. Okay, pistil consists of three important parts: stigma, style, ovary. The ovary is the spore producing organs in female which produces megaspores. So stamens has anther or stamen consists of anther which produces microspore, and this microspore are the male reproductive part and ovary produces megaspore which are the female reproductive spores. Clear? Next we need to discuss about the life cycle of angiosperm which is haplodiplontic. Okay, so what is embryogenesis? The embryogenesis, it transforms a single celled zygote into multicellular microscopic embryonic plant. Okay. So this is just the definition of embryogenesis. So we need to discuss about the life cycle of angiosperm. So it consists of two generations, sporophytic generation and gametophytic generation. So gametophytic generation and sporophytic generation. Now, we also need to know about the characteristics of these two generations. This gametophytic generation, gametophytic generation is a short, nutritionally independent, and haploid phase. Okay, and sporophytic generation is a diploid phase. Okay, now there is an in generation in gametophytic and sporophytic phase. Okay, so what we see the life cycle. So at first, gametophytic generation will produce what? They will produce gametes, the male gamete and female gamete. Okay, they'll produce what? They'll produce gametes. This gamete will show the fusion and will form what? Zygote. The male gamete and female gamete will fuse, it will form zygote. The zygote will undergo mitosis, it will form sporophyte. This sporophyte plant, since they are diploid to form the gametophyte again, they need to show meiosis. So zygote have undergone mitosis. Zygote is also 2N. They have undergone mitosis to form sporophytic plant. The sporophytic plant have to undergo meiosis to form the haploid generation again. Okay, so sporophytic plant shows meiosis and they'll form what? They'll form spores. And the spores will again show the mitosis and form gametophyte. Okay. So gametophytes are haploid. Gametes are also haploid. There is a fusion known as syngamy. The fusion of male and female gamete is known as syngamy, which will form zygote, which is 2N. Sporophytic plant is also diploid, I told you. Now spores are haploid. See here the meiosis process is occurring. The spores are haploid. The spores will again undergo mitosis. It will form gametophyte. Okay, so this life cycle is known as haplodiplontic life cycle. Clear? Now we will begin our discussion with the sporophytic generation first. Sporophytic generation. So here what we see that the spore producing organs produces spores by the process known as sporogenesis. So sporogenesis is a process where the spore producing organs produces spores. So when microspores are produced, it is known as microsporogenesis. And when megaspores are produced, it is known as megasporogenesis. What is sporogenesis? It is the process of formation of spores. Okay, microsporogenesis is the formation of male spores and megasporogenesis is the formation of female spores. Okay, now so we will begin our discussion with microsporogenesis. In microsporogenesis, what we see that microspores are produced. Where are these microspores produced? These microspores are produced in the organ named as anther. Okay, they happens in the organ of the plant or the whole of the plant named as anther. Clear? So let's see. So the process of formation of microspore is known as microsporogenesis. The microspore will give rise to male gametophyte. Okay, the anther bears stamens. The anther, okay, or the stamen, anther or the stamen have what? They have microsporangia. These microsporangia are also known as pollen sacs. Okay, and this microsporangia or pollen sac, they form what? They form microspores. These microspores are also known as pollen grains. Clear? So what we studied till now? We studied that the life cycle of the angiospermic plant is haplodiplontic. Okay, they shows the alteration of sporophytic generation and the gametophytic generation. We are starting with the sporophytic generation, where we have to study about microsporogenesis and megasporogenesis. Microsporogenesis is the formation of male spores and megasporogenesis is the formation of female spores. The male spores or the microspores are found in anther. Okay, anther have a structure known as microsporangia or the pollen sacs, where the microspores or the pollen grains are produced. Clear? Now we will go into the detail. So how the anther looks like. Okay, so anther is the male reproductive unit of the flower. Okay, the anther, each anther is made up of two lobes. Okay, which are connected together by a tissue known as connective. Okay, this is not the connective tissue what we see in blood. They are these. Connective is a kind of tissue which connects the two lobes of the anther. Clear? Now, each anther lobe contains two pollen chambers. So what we discussed that visualize the picture. I'll show you the picture, but visualize that anther have two lobes. Okay, in each lobe there are two pollen chambers. So one lobe have two pollen chambers, another lobe have two pollen chambers. So total pollen chambers are four. Okay, in each pollen chamber there is a microsporangium. Okay, microsporangium is what? It is a region of producing the microspores. Okay, so what we discussed that anther have two lobes. In each lobe there are two microsporangium. Okay, this microsporangium are also known as pollen sacs. This pollen sacs produces what? Pollen grains or microspores. So look at the picture. See, this is one lobe, the left side is one lobe, the right side is another lobe. Okay, and in each lobe, the circle part which you see, in each lobe there are two microsporangium. See, in each part there are two microsporangium and in another lobe there are another two microsporangium. This microsporangium are the region of producing spores or microspores. Okay, I'll come to the another picture later. So see, this is a structure of anther. Okay, if we make a transverse section, okay, the picture will look like this. So each anther you can see it's a lobe part. Okay, the lobe, it is bilobed. This is said to be as one lobe. See, I have marked it here in the next picture. Let's see, this part right side is one lobe, the left side is one lobe. Okay, so each lobe have two microsporangium. Clear? This microsporangium produces numerous pollen grains. I'll come to the detailment later. So what we studied, that anther is a bilobed structure and two lobes are separated by a tissue known as connective. I'll show you in the next picture. Each anther lobe have two microsporangia. So anther is said to be a tetrasporangiate. Clear? Now see, the middle part which you can see is the connective, okay, which connects the two lobes. Okay. Now this middle part is the filament. Anther has two parts. This one filamentous part. Okay. The filamentous part which is going from here till the middle. This is going from the middle to the top. Okay. So this part which is connecting. Okay. Which so here we see that each anther lobe has two microsporangia and connective is a region which connects the two anther lobes. Okay. This anther lobes have microsporangium, and inside the microsporangium pollen mother cells are produced. This pollen mother cell will undergo meiosis and will produce what? It will produce pollen grains. Okay, we will discuss the detailment in the next few slides. Okay, now again I would like to mention that in all sides of the anther lobe there is a deposition of cellulose. Okay, which is actually the callose. Okay, so which is actually the callose deposition in all side of the anther lobe, but in the line of dehiscence, which is this one, in the line of dehiscence from where the anther will burst, there is no deposition of callose. Okay, we'll discuss this in the next few slides. Now, how the microsporangia look like? Okay, so we need to know that the outer side is the epidermal cell. Okay, if we go back to the structure again, the outer side is the epidermal cell and the interior to the epidermis is the hypodermis. Okay, so interior to the epidermis is the hypodermal region. This hypodermal region, among these hypodermal region, there are many hypodermal regions, and among these hypodermal regions, some cell will grow and become prominent. Okay, this prominent cell will become what? It will become archispodial cell. Now this from archispodial cell only the uh, this archispodial cell will then divide into the anther wall, outside anther wall, and the inner sporogenous mass. Okay, so here we know that, see, the archispodial cell will divide in a plane parallel to the outer wall of the anther lobe, and it forms what? It forms a parietal layer. It forms a parietal layer. Okay, this parietal layer will form the wall of the anther, and it will form the sporogenous layer towards the inner side. Okay, now we need to know about the different wall layers of the anther. So what are the different wall layers? First is epidermis, then endothecium, then it is tapetum. Now tapetum is very important. Okay, so the three different layers of anther wall are epidermis, endothecium. There is one another layer known as middle layer, and the last layer, which is the innermost, is the tapetum. Okay, so four layers we need to study what they are. They are epidermis, they are endothecium. Okay, there is another layer which I'll add here. This is the middle layer, and the last layer is the tapetum. So from the outer to the innermost, this is the sequence. The innermost is tapetum. Now tapetum is very important layer. We'll discuss in detail about the tapetum. So epidermis is protective in nature. It is the outermost layer of the anther. Inner to the epidermis is the endothecium layer. Okay. Inner to the epidermis is the endothecium layer. Okay. This endothecium layer have a fibrous thickening. Because of this fibrous thickening, now this fibrous thickening is due to the cellulose present in them. Okay, cellulose, pectin and lignin makes this layer fibrous, and this layer helps in the dehiscence of anther. So anther burst from this layer. Okay, so this fibrous band present on the walls of the endothecium, it helps in the dehiscence of pollen at maturity. So look here, I told you that the outer side is epidermis, and inner side is what it is, hypodermal region. In the hypodermal region, some cells will become prominent, will form archisporial cell. Archisporial cell will divide to form wall layer and sporogenous mass. Now we have discussed epidermis and endothelium. We will discuss about middle layer and tapetum. Coming to the middle layer. So middle layer is again 3 to 4 layers. They are again thin walled cells which are below the endothelium. Okay, epidermis, endothelium, then the middle layer. This middle layer will degenerate and they provide nourishment to the growing microspore mother cell. Okay, so from microspore mother cell, microspores will be formed. So microspores mother cells need to grow. So where from they will get the nutrition? They will get the nutrition from the degeneration of the middle layer. Okay, next to the innermost layer, which is just near the sporogenous mass, I'll again explain you in detail that this innermost layer is the tapetum. Okay, this is multinucleate. Many nucleus are there here and they are polyploid. So tapetal cells are nutritive, means they degenerate also to provide the nutrition to the growing microspore mother cells. Okay, this microspore mother cell can also be written as MMC. Now let's know about tapetum. So tapetum, I told, this is the innermost layer. They provide nutrition to microspore mother cell. Okay, what is the main peculiarity of tapetum? That they have prominent nucleus and dense cytoplasm. Okay, they are binucleated. They can be multinucleated also, and they are very active. Okay, they regulate the process of microsporogenesis. What is microsporogenesis? It is the formation of microspores, and very important part that they produce sporopollenin. Now this sporopollenin is the hardest substance in the whole plant. Very important. Okay, this is the hardest substance in the plant. They produce sporopollenin and they produce various proteins. Okay, so where they okay, they provide nutrition to the microspore mother cell. Okay, where they take the nutrition from? They take the nutrition from the outer layer. What are the outer layer? Outer layers are middle layer. Okay, they take the nutrition from the middle layer because middle layer degenerate and it will provide nutrition. So they take the nutrition from the middle layer and transport it to the microspore mother cell. Where are these microspore mother cells are present? They are present inside the microsporangium. I told you earlier. Okay, one very important function of tapetum is they produce sporopollenin. Okay, they also produce proteins for compatibility reactions. We'll study about self compatibility and incompatibility after some time, that for they produce some proteins which help in compatibility reactions. It's like compatibility reaction means pollen will germinate. Okay, only they will germinate only in the ovary of those plants which are of their type. Okay, they properly recognize the flower. Okay, then the germination will be allowed. We will discuss it in detail. Now, they secrete callase enzyme which breaks the callose layer. So what is this callose layer? Callose layers are like they are formed where, so this callase enzyme which they synthesize, it helps in the degradation of callose. Why is the callose degradation required? Because the callose wall, when it is degrade, it helps in the release of microspores present in the tetrad. Okay, so uh, the anther wall in the longitudinal side, we will see that the callose are present. So dehiscence is from this wall. This line of dehiscence is known as stomium. Okay. So how the microspores are released from the tetrad, we will discuss after some time. But we need to know that the tapetum is synthesizing sporopollenin. It is synthesizing callase. Now callase is helping in the dehiscence of the anther. Okay. How we will see it. Now this tapetum are of two types. They are amoeboid and secretory. Okay, what is the role of amoeboid tapetum? Sorry, that these what I told, that tapetum helps in the transfer of nutrients from the outer layers into the sporogenous mass which is inside the tapetum. Okay, so they need to move the nutrition. Okay, So to move the nutrition to and fro in the inner cell, to and fro means like if this is a cell, okay, these are the outer layers and tapetum is this one, okay, and these are sporogenous mass. So tapetum needs to move the nutrients from the outer layer to the inner layer, okay, and inside the inner layer also they have to move to some distance. Okay, amoeboid tapetum will move some distance and it will uniformly distribute the nutrient inside the sporogenous mass. Okay, so they are carrying the chemical from the outer layer to the inner layer, okay, and to and fro inside the inner layer also, so that they will be uniformly distributed. And the secretory tapetum, which secretes sporopollenin, proteins and callase enzyme, we discussed already. Okay, so look here, when the anther is young, okay, when the anther is young, there are group of compactly arranged cells are formed. Okay, so archisporial cell will form a sporogenous mass, it will form anther wall. Okay, so this sporogenous mass which is formed, they are compactly arranged cells inside the microsporangium. Okay, so they occupies the center of the microsporangium, and then the microsporogenesis process happens. So what is microsporogenesis? It's the formation of microspores. Next, see, so we discussed that in the uh, like anther, some cells become prominent. Okay, some hypodermal cells become prominent, they form archisporial cell. Archisporial cell will form what? It will form the anther wall as well as sporogenous tissue. So anther wall, we discussed about the function of the three anther walls. Now what this sporogenous tissue does? This sporogenous tissue will undergo mitosis. Okay, they will undergo mitosis and they will form microspore mother cell. From mother the sons will form. Okay, who are the sons of microspore mother cells? So microspores are the sons of microspore mother cell. Okay, this microspores will also be said to be a pollen grain. So sporogenous tissue will form microspore mother cell, which will form what? It will form tetrad of microspore, means 4 microspores are formed, known as tetrad of microspores. Okay, these microspores are rounded off, forming individual pollen grain. We will discuss about how pollen grains are formed. So the arrangement of microspores in tetrad is known as tetrahedral. Look at the left side. The arrangement of microspores in tetrad form is known as tetrahedral. Okay, this tetrahedral, you can see here the 3 microspores are there, which you can see, but one microspore is towards the back side. Okay, so 4 microspores are here. The arrangement of microspores in tetrad is known as tetrahedral, which is common in dicots, or it can be isobilateral, okay, which is common in monocots. However, there are some decussate, there are some linear and T-shaped are also found. There is one plant known as Aristolochia elegans. In Aristolochia, all 5 types of tetrads are present. Okay, just remember this name. In Aristolochia, all 5 types of tetrads are present. And what are tetrad? Tetrad are 4 microspores. Okay, when it is tetrahedral, like this arrangement, it is seen in dicots, which is most common one. Now we will discuss about the pollen grain. So what we studied, that pollen mother cell. The pollen mother cell have undergone meiosis. It has produced what? It has produced pollen grains. Okay. Now we will study about pollen grain. So microspores are the pollen grains which are released. Okay. They have an outstanding feature. Okay. Which is their wall. Okay. Their wall are sculpted. Okay. Their wall have sculptures. Okay. In variety of patterns, the wall typically consists of the outer exine and the inner entine. Okay, the exine is a uniform sheet. Okay, and this exine, so we need to know that the sporoderm, which is the outer layer of the pollen, it is divided into outer exine layer and the inner entine layer. The outer layer, which is more important to study, that they are made up of sporopollenin. This is the most resistant like substance found in plant. Okay, and on earth also, this is the most resistant substance on earth. Now, the most distinctive chemical component of the pollen wall is sporopollenin. This sporopollenin, it consists of some chemicals. Okay, say for example, it consists of some oxidative chemicals known as carotenoids and carotenoid esters. Okay, this is the composition of sporopollenin, and they are resistant to various chemicals. They are resistant to high temperature and also some organic matter, decaying agents. Okay, they are also found to be responsible for the preservation of pollen in the fossil plant deposits. Okay, when there is a fossil plant deposit, it was found that they helps in the preservation of the pollens. Okay, so look here, this is the outer exine layer which is sculpted with sporopollenin. The inner wall is intine, which is made up of pectin and cellulose. Please remember, exine is made up of sporopollenin and intine is made up of pectin and cellulose. We will come about the inner cell in some time. Now, aperture of pollen grain, it can be rounded also, it can be furrow-like also. Okay, it can be rounded or it can be furrow-like. The rounded one is said to be a sporate and the furrow-like is said to be a scolpate. And the number of furrows varies in the plants. So in monocots, it was seen that there is monocolpate pollen. Only one furrow is there. Colpate means furrow. Monocolpate is present. Only one furrow. It can be like this or like this. Now in dicots, there are three colpate pollen. Okay. Now very important question once came on this. In dicots, there are three colpate pollens. Okay. You can see. Now we will need to study about the exine and intine in little more detail. That the pollen grain has apertures, I told you. Okay, this exine is very hard. Inner to the exine is intine. Okay, from the intine only the pollen tube will come out. So look here, there is an aperture, okay, from where the pollen tube will come out. This aperture have the thin walled area. This aperture have a thin walled area. That is why the pollen tube can come out from here. Clear? This picture is to just show you that the aperture have thin walled areas. About this later steps we will discuss in some time. Now we need to study about the gametophytic generation. So we have discussed about the pollen walls, exine, intine. Okay, in the gametophytic generation we see that the inside the pollen grain there is the division. Okay, so we need to know that the gametophytic plant body will form the gamete. Okay, the male gametophyte will form the male gamete. Now we need to know in the protoplast of the pollen grain there is a division, mitotic division. Right here, there is the mitotic division. I write here only, that will be better. There is the mitotic division which will form what? It will form generative cell and a tube cell. The generative cell will be small and the tube cell will be larger. Tube cell can also be said to be as vegetative cell. Okay. Now, this tube cell has the role in the guidance. So, first role is what? It has also changed the color. So, tube role plays an important role in guiding the pollen tube germination. Sorry, guiding the pollen germination. Okay, it guides the pollen germination. It helps in the growth of the pollen tube after the pollen lands on the stigma. Okay, now it also have the important role that they have abundant food reserve. Okay, and they have irregular shaped nucleus. This is just for the information, but remember they have abundant food reserve and they guide the pollen germination. When the pollen lands on the stigma, they help in the pollen tube formation. How? Because they constantly supply the nutrients so that the pollen tube can grow. What about generative cell? They are the small ones. This generative cell will divide mitotically again, because they are pollen grains is what? They are N haploid. They will not divide meiotically. Okay, so they will divide mitotically and will form two male gametes. This male gamete will float in the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. I will show you the picture in the next slide that this is a tube cell, and inside the tube cell is vegetative cell. Inside the tube cell, there is the generative cell. So if this is a tube cell, okay, this is the generative cell. So inside the cytoplasm of the tube cell, there is a generative cell which floats. Okay, so remember, generative cells will produce male gametes. They have dense cytoplasm and nucleus. Now in the last line, what is written, that among the angiosperm, a pollen is shed in either a two-celled stage. What is two-celled stage? That the large tube cell and the generative cell in the two-celled stage, or it can be shed into three-celled stage. Three-celled stage means the generative cell have undergone division and formed two male gametes. So either it is shed in three-celled stage, which is the two male gamete and one tube cell, which is three, or it can be shed into one generative cell and one tube cell. So two cell stage or three cell stage. So I'll describe this in little detail. Sorry. So I said that the generative cell may divide. So when this generative cell will show the division, so generative cell may divide immediately to form, they may divide immediately to form what? To form two male gametes. When the pollen are shed, they may divide immediately and form two male gametes. Male gamete can also be written as sperm cells. Okay. Or the second mitotic division. Okay. Or the second division means the formation of two male gametes. This can occur after pollen germination. So remember, they can be shed into two cell stage or three cell stage. So when they divide immediately, they are into the when they divide immediately, they form two male gametes. So or it may occur after the pollen grain germinates. Okay, so among the angiosperm, the pollen is shed in either the two cell stage condition or in the three cell stage conditions. Okay, so this is what written in the last slide, that among the angiosperm, a pollen is shed in either the two-celled stage or the three-celled stage. Remember this. This is again an important part. So look here, the anther will dehisce from this layer, which is the line of dehiscence, and this line of dehiscence is known as what? Stomium. They will dehisce from this line. Okay, and once the anthers are matured, uh, once the anthers are matured, the endothecium layer, I described endothecium layer, I'll show you again. This is the endothecium layer which is just below the epidermis. This endothecium layer dries up, okay, they become shortened and they dries up, and the anther as a result ruptures. You can see that then when the anthers are matured, the two microsporangium become one, okay, they joins up. So when they are ruptured, the pollen grains are liberated, and this is a line of dehiscence, which is known as stomium. So look at this picture. In summary, what we have studied, three layers. The three layers are what? The epidermis. Okay, just the one which I have marketed with the red colored, they are the endothecium layer, which is just below the epidermis. Okay, the middle layer which provides nutrition to the sporogenous tissues. Sporogenous tissues are this one. I make it blue colored, sporogenous tissues. These are sporogenous tissues. Okay, these are sporogenous tissues. And the innermost layer, which I have drawn with brown color, it is tapetum. Okay, now see, look here, I have drawn here in this picture that the end in the endothecium, the blue color is epidermis, and the red color one, the more prominent one, the which are bigger than the epidermis, they are endothecium. This endothecium have deposition of callose in their longitudinal wall. See, there are no deposition of callose in the vertical wall. You can see here. Okay, So there is deposition of callus in the longitudinal, sorry, no deposition of callus in the horizontal wall. Okay, so there is deposition of callus in the longitudinal wall, and when the anther dries up, this endothecium will what happen? The endothecium will rupture, okay, and due to which the anther will be released. So see, in the mature condition, there are only two theca. What is theca? Theca is, say for example, the one side. Okay, this is like one lobe. And immature condition, there are four theca, which is like four microsporangium. So look here, the difference between microsporogenesis and microgametogenesis. Micro refers to male. Okay, so look here, in the microsporogenesis, what we saw, that from microspore mother cell, the tetrads are formed. That means four microspores are formed. Okay, this microspore, like each microspore is each pollen grain. Okay, each microspore is each pollen grain. Now this pollen grain, if this is one pollen grain, which is microspore, this is a microscopic structure again. Now this pollen grain will, inside the pollen grain there will mitotic division, which will produce vegetative cell and generative cell. The generative cell will divide again to form two sperm cell of the male gamete. And the vegetative cell, it will help in, or it will guide the pollen tube germination, or it will provide the nutrition to the growing pollen tube. Okay. Now we come to megasporogenesis. Now mega is the female reproductive development. Clear? So again I remind you with the structure of a flower that the female reproductive part is pistil. Pistil consists of style, stigma and ovary. And ovary produces what? Ovary produces the megaspores, which are the female gametes. Okay, sorry, I'll not say. Yeah. So ovary produces the megaspores, which are not the female gamete actually. The ovary produces megaspores. So how this megaspore is formed, we'll discuss about that right now. So before we go into detail, just I want to give you some basic idea that this pistil consists of either one carpel or many carpel. Okay, so pistil and carpel are not synonymous. Pistil, which is the female reproductive part, pistil can consist of either one carpel or many carpel. Okay, if they consist one carpel, it is said to be as monocarpellary. So when the carpels are um, free, it is known as apocarpus. Okay, so see the picture. This is apocarpus. The carpels are free. Okay, many carpels are there here, but the carpels are free. So this is apocarpus. Syn word you meaning, you know that syn means joined, fused. So when the carpels are fused, it is known as syncarpus. Just a brief idea about the carpel. So we need to know about the structure of the ovule first. So what is ovule? The ovule is the site of formation of megaspores. Okay, I write here that ovule is the site of formation of megaspores. So ovule can be said to be as megasporangium. It is a site of formation of megaspores. So it is said to be as megasporangium. Remember, ovary is not megasporangium, but ovule is the megasporangium. Okay, so ovule is attached to the placenta by means of a structure known as funicle. What is placenta? Placenta is the surface of the carpel. What is carpel? So carpel is the female reproductive part. Okay, this carpel, uh, to the carpel, the ovule is attached. Okay, to the surface of the carpel, the ovule is attached by a region known as placenta. Just to give you the idea. Okay, now it fuses with the ovule at the point known as hilum. So see, there is a point known as hilum. So this funicle, it fuses with the hilum at the point of the attachment. Okay, the funicle fuses with the ovule at which region? At the hilum region. Okay, the funicle will attach the ovule to the surface of the carpel. Okay, and where is this funicle? So funicle is attached to the ovule at which region? At the hilum region, at this region. Clear? Now, this ovule has several parts. One of the part is the nucellus. So inside the ovule, here, look here, inside the ovule, the mass of cells which you can see is the nucellus. Okay, it also consists of one or two integuments, which is the outer covering. This integument, this is integument, which is the outer covering of the ovule. Okay, and the stalk, which is known as funiculus. Now look here, in some plants the integument is only one, in some plants the integument is two, just for the general idea. So see, this is an inverted ovule. In some plants you will find that the ovule is like the top part is micropyle. In some plants you will, in some of plants you will find that the top part is chalousal. Okay, so if the ovule is upright, okay, if the ovule is upright, then the micropyle will be towards the top. Now this is an inverted ovule, you can see here. Okay, so this ovule have the micropyle towards the downward side. So this you will not bother about. You will just remember one side is micropyle and another side opposite to the micropyle is the chalousal end. Okay, so remember which end will be chalousal. So the region where the nucellus, the integument and the funicle merge. Okay, where the funicle, where the integument and the nucellus will merge, it is known as the chalousal end. Is known as the chalousal end, where the funicle, nucellus and the integument merges. It is known as chalousal end and the opposite end is the micropylar end. Now we need to know about how the megasporocyte develops. So this is somewhat similar to what we studied in microsporogenesis. So how this megasporocyte develops, look here. So same like from the archisporial cell only, the megasporocyte will also be developed. Okay, so see this archisporial cell will divide into outer primary wall cell and inner sporogenous mass cell like it happened there. Okay, but here the sporogenous mass will differentiate into megaspore mother cell, which will undergo meiosis and it will form 4 haploid megaspore. There it formed 4 haploid microspore. Here it is forming 4 haploid megaspore. Okay, so megasporogenesis is the formation of haploid megaspores. The megaspore mother cell will produce its daughters known as megaspores. Now their outer primary wall, they like this is also known as parietal layer. Okay, so the wall layer will be known as parietal layer. This, if it's forming the megasporocyte, it is forming what? Integuments and the nucellus. Integuments will be outer and nucellus will be towards the inside. Okay. So the formation of megaspore, here we can say that this is the sporophytic generation. This seems quite confusing, but when you will watch the video by giving the pause and writing the notes simultaneously, then it will seem very easy. Okay, go through it very thoroughly, then it will seem very easy. The sporophytic and gametophytic might be little confusing, but once you will focus it properly and write the notes simultaneously in the copy while studying, it will be very helpful and I'm sure you will understand. Okay, now coming to the gametophytic generation. So initially this sporophytic and gametophytic generation was confusing for me also, but thoroughly if you will give a little focus and you will make the notes simultaneously, you will understand. Okay, so we'll solve, once we will start solving questions, no, you will be very clear that what kind of question can be framed from this topic. Okay, so now coming to the gametophytic generation of the uh, okay, now, this megaspores which are formed, they will give rise to what? They will form female gametophyte. What is female gametophyte? This female gametophyte is what? Embryo sac. Okay. This female gametophytic is what? It is embryo sac. Okay. Now, there are several variations in the formation of the how the embryo sac will be formed in angiosperm. Different angiospermic plant form different kinds of embryo sac, and lot like the questions are framed. Last year in December 2019 also the question on embryo sac came. We will solve it right now. Now the most common type of embryo sac which is formed is the polygonum type. We will discuss it. So what we see that the polygonum type shows the monosporic development. Monosporic development we will discuss in the next slide. Okay, so monosporic development is what? That out of the 4 megaspores which are produced, okay, it forms female gametophyte where the 4 megaspores are formed. Out of the 4 megaspores, see in the picture towards the left side, in the out of the 4 megaspores, 3 will degenerate and only one will form the embryo sac. Okay, so what we are seeing here, that megasporocyte, okay, which is the megaspore mother cell. Megasporocyte is also said to be as megaspore mother cell. It will undergo 2 meiotic division. It will form uh, it will form 4 functional megaspores. Out of the 4 functional megaspores, 3 will degenerate and 1 will be involved in the formation of the embryo sac. So see, after the one like haploid number of megaspore is formed, it will undergo 2 mitotic division. Okay, 1, 2, 3 mitotic division. So here I write that they undergo mitotic division second and mitosis third. So 3 mitotic division which will form 8 nuclei. This 8 nuclei will undergo the cell wall formation and they are arranged into the 7 celled condition. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6 and the 2 polar nuclei, it will form 1 cell later. I'll discuss about it. Okay, so 8 nuclei will be arranged into the 7 celled condition. So with that we will solve one question first, that which one of the following plant has a bisporic 8 nucleate bipolar embryo sac development. So monosporic we discussed the polygonum type where only one, 3 are degenerating, okay, 3 are degenerating and only one is involved in the formation of what? Embryo sac. The one which is left, it will divide 3 times mitotically, it will form the 8 celled conditions. Okay, the 8 cell, the 8 nuclei which is formed, okay, 8 nuclei which is formed will form the 7 celled embryo sac. But see in bisporic condition what we see, which is the allium type. Here 2, it's like 2 degenerates. Look here, the here in the allium type you can see that the uh, 2 functional megaspores are playing into the role. So bisporic is that a functional embryo sac has been developed from 2 megaspores. So remember this question came. So what will be the answer here? This came in December 2019. So bisporic is what? The allium one. Okay, so 4 is the answer. So polygonum and Enothera, O-E-N-O. Enothera, they two are the one which shows monosporic development. In the few of the paper it came about the tetrasporic, this one and this one also. Okay, so tetrasporic part is also important. So tetrasporic 16 nucleate type you have to study about the just the examples. The tetrasporic are peperomia and penia and drusa. This 3 are 16 cell. Just remember the celled ones. Okay, so peperemia, penia and drusa, and the tetrasporic 8 nucleate type is fritillaria. So please remember this 16 nucleate type. Okay, and this is 8 nucleate type, which they both are tetrasporic. Okay, just remember 8 nucleate type tetrasporic is fritillaria. You will find this in questions. Now we need to know about the egg apparatus. Now we need to know about the cells, which cells are what. We need to study about the micropylar end and the chalosyl end. I told where the integuments, where the funiculus and the nucellus fuse, it is known as chalosyl end here. And the next is micropylar end. In the micropylar end have 3 cells known as the bigger one, the larger one you can see is the egg apparatus, which will fuse with the male gamete, and the ones in the adjacent of egg apparatus is what? They are synergids. Okay, I'll tell you the function of each one. Now, the cells in the chalazial end are known as antipodal cells. Please remember, the egg apparatus and synergids opposite to that are chalazial end. Now, the remaining two nuclei, which is at the center, is known as polar nuclei. They fuse. Okay, they polar nuclei fuse and it will form secondary diploid nucleus. So all the cells, chalazial end and the antipodal chalazial end, which are the antipodal cells, synergids and the egg cell, all are haploid. But the central nucleus, which is this, but the central nucleus is diploid. Okay, because it has two nuclei. Where does this two nuclei came from? I told that four spores are produced. See the four, if I see the monosporic type, the four ones are produced, the four spores are produced. So one from each end will come towards the center. One spore from, one nucleus from each side will come towards the center, and in the center there will be ultimately two nuclei. These two nuclei will fuse to form secondary nucleus. Say that here it is the central cell, which I can say that this is the diploid central nucleus. So this is the central cell. The central cell is what? Having diploid chromosome number, and the antipodal cells and the micropylar end. Okay, so ultimately they are forming what? Three cells, and this is 361, and this is forming the two nuclei form fuse together to form the central cell. So they are showing what? They are showing the seven celled condition, having 8 nuclei but 7 celled condition. So next the step what comes is pollination, which is the landing of the pollen on the stigma and subsequent germination of pollen on the stigma. Okay. Now, once the pollination happens, what we see here, the interaction of this pollen with the pistil, which is a female reproductive part, it is known as pollen pistil interaction. Okay, now pistil has the ability to recognize right type of the pollen. Okay, if it's of same species, they will allow the growth of the pollen tube, otherwise not. Okay, so how they will recognize whether the pollen is of same species or not? So there is an exchange of chemicals between them. Okay, the chemicals are exchanged. If the chemicals are of right type, then the pollen tube will germinate, otherwise not. So this sexual incompatibility, it can be interspecific or intraspecific. The intraspecific, which is within the species, is known as self-incompatibility. We will study about self-incompatibility in detail, which is an important part here. I will explain you this diagram. Look here that the pollen grain also have some chemicals. Say for example, this pollen grain express the chemical S3 and S4, and this like the stigma or the style have S1 and S2. Okay, so if S3 and S4 pollen comes, and inside the female it is S1 and S2, since they do not match. Okay, since they do not match, there will be the growth. That means pollen tube can grow. Okay, this is self incompatibility, means they will not allow the same type, the pollens with the same type of chemicals to grow. Look here, the S1 S2 have the female have S1 S2 and the male have S1. So S1 and S1 is similar, so S1 type of pollen cannot grow here, but S3 can grow because S3 is not similar. So this is what is known as self incompatibility, where they will not allow the similar type, the pollens with the same chemical types, to grow into them. So look here, we need to study about the interspecific or intraspecific in detail. Change the color. So see, interspecific means it is between different species. They will not allow the different species, pollen from different species, to come and fuse with them. Intraspecific is what? Within the members of the same species. They will not allow the pollens of their species also. Now this intraspecific is very important. Okay, since they are not allowing their own type of pollen grains from their own species, that means they are not allowing the self-pollination to occur. Okay, they are like helping in cross-pollination. These plants are helping in cross-pollination. Okay, so intraspecific occurs within the same plant. Okay, with similar genotype. If they have similar genotype, then they will not show the pollination. They will show self incompatibility, means not allowing the self type of pollens to grow into them. Okay, so that means they are helping in outcrossing. They are preventing self fertilization. Now, this intraspecific incompatibility is controlled by single genetic locus S. Very important to know. They are controlled by single genetic locus S. We discussed in the last slide. This is controlled by S. Okay. Now, so look here, gametophytic self incompatibility. Whatever I will say, you will understand. So it is of two types: gametophytic self incompatibility and sporophytic self incompatibility. Okay, here I am marking sporophytic and gametophytic self incompatibility. Self incompatibility is of intraspecific incompatibility. Okay, now this gametophytic incompatibility is more common. It is found in families like Solanaceae, Rosaceae, etc. They occurs when the S allele of the pollen grain matches. Okay, when there is a matching between the allele of the pollen grain as well as the stigma or the female, then there will be no growth of the pollen tube. When there is matching, then there is no growth. Okay, but sometimes it is seen that the pollen tube starts growing. Either it will not grow, or sometimes it has been seen that the pollen tube will start the growth, but later on the growth is stopped before it reach the micropylar end. I'll discuss about why they go to micropylar end. Okay, so before they reach the micropylar end where the egg is present, before reaching the egg, the growth of pollen tube stops. Now, gametophytic self incompatibility shows two mechanisms by how they uh, halter the growth of the pollen tube. So one mechanism is RNase mechanism, another mechanism is glycoprotein mechanism. Now see, in RNase mechanism what we see that the pollen tube at first elongates within the style. Okay, so either it will not grow. Once it has started the growth of the pollen tube will be stopped. Okay, now here what we see that male and female both will, like pollen and style or the female determinant, both will produce some chemicals. So female component will produce a chemical known as ribonuclease. This ribonuclease will degrade the rRNA of the pollen tube. Okay, this female determinant will degrade the rRNA of the pollen tube. Okay, when they will degrade, if they will find that the pollen have the same allele as they have. If the male and female allele matches, then the female will release ribonuclease and it will degrade the rRNA of the pollen tube. Also, the male component will produce F-box protein. They will degrade the sRNase molecules of the female. Okay, they will degrade the sRNAs of the female and female will degrade the rRNA of the pollen tube. Okay. Now another mechanism of this gametophytic self-incompatibility is S-glycoprotein mechanism. In S-glycoprotein mechanism, what we see that there is a female determinant which is kind of produce a kind of ligand. Okay, the female determinant is acting as a ligand and the male determinant is a cell membrane receptor. It is behaving as a receptor. When there is an interaction between this female determinant is a kind of chemical substance which is released. When they interact, then there is a signal which is transmitted into the pollen tube. There is a strong influx of calcium into the pollen tube. So once there is high amount of calcium in the pollen tube, it arrests the pollen tube elongation. So please remember that calcium arrests the growth of the pollen tube. Okay. Another kind of self-incompatibility, previously we discussed gametophytic. Another kind is sporophytic self-incompatibility. Now sporophytic self-incompatibility is what? That when there we studied that the S allele was produced by pollens. Here the S alleles are produced by sporophytic tissues. Say for example tapetum. Okay, the sporophytic tissues, when there is incompatibility in the S alleles of the sporophytic tissue, then it is sporophytic self-incompatibility. Just remember that. Okay, so in summary what we studied that the incompatibility is controlled by many processes. What they cause is is the prevention of pollen germination. Pollen tube cannot penetrate the stigma. If they penetrate, the growth will be stopped before they reach the micropyle. There is the inhibition of pollen tube growth in the style only. Okay, the pollen tube cannot enter the ovary or the ovule. Okay, so if they cannot enter the ovule of the or the ovary, there will be the failure of fusion of male and female gamete. Clear? Now another very simple one I have included, that pollination, which is the germination of the pollen tube, or the germination of the pollen grain. The landing of the pollen on the stigma and subsequent germination of the pollen is known as pollination. So it can be self-pollination or cross-pollination. Self-pollination is what? When the pollens, this is, see, the pollens, look here, when the pollens falls on the stigma of the same plant, okay, falls on the stigma of the either this in the same flower or in the different flower. Okay, either the pollen will fall on the stigma of the same flower or the different flower. Okay, if they fall on the stigma of the same flower, it is same flower, I write here, of the same plant only. If they fall on the stigma of either the same flower or a different flower within the same plant, it is known as self-pollination. And what is cross-pollination? Cross-pollination is when the pollen falls on the stigma of another flower of different plant. Okay, when they falls on the different plant, then it is cross-pollination. When they falls in the same plant, be it on the same flower or be the flower is different, but the plant is same, then it is self-pollination. Okay, so if it's on the same flower, okay, it's coming out from this flower and falling on the stigma of the same flower, okay, then it is self-pollination. Then if it's of same flower, the process is known as autogamy. When it is the different flower but the plant is same, it is known as etonogamy. Clear? Now, the cross-pollination shows xenogamy. This cross-pollination creates the variation in plants. Okay, so just one slide I have included, that see the self-pollination. If the anthers are falling on the same flower or the different flower, see, autogamy is what? If they are coming out from here and they are falling on the stigma of the same flower, the flower is same, look here. But here they are coming out from this flower but falling on the stigma of another flower. Can you see here? They are falling on the stigma of another flower, but when the flower is different, okay, when the flower is different, see, I'm talking about this flower, right, this plant right now. When the flower is different, then it is etonogamy. When the flower is same, it is autogamy. But here we are talking about the same plant. What is in the another case? When they are going to the another plant, this is a different plant, then it is cross pollination. Now we will come to the egg apparatus in detail, that the egg apparatus is present in the micropylar end. This end is the micropylar end. I switch on the laser pointer. So this is the micropylar end. The middle one is the egg apparatus. Okay, so micropylar end has 3 cells. The middle one is egg apparatus and the adjoining cells are the synergid cells. Okay, the central cell is the egg cell, this one. Okay, in the egg cell, see, I have drawn elaborately. In the egg cell, we see that towards the end side, like towards the opening side of the micropylar end, the vacuole is first and the nucleus is towards the inner side. Inner side is the interior one, outer side is towards the micropylar, towards the pore side. Okay, the vacuole is present towards the outer side. Okay, and but in synergids, see, the direction of the vacuole is opposite. Okay, and near to the synergids are the apparatus known as filiform apparatus. I'll discuss. So the vacuole are present. So what will happen when the pollen tube will come and when it will try to fuse with the egg apparatus? There is a chance that egg cell may be damaged. The nucleus may be damaged because they have to give the pressure to enter into this region. Okay, so because of that, the nature have made the structure like that, that the vacuole is present first. So when the pollen tube is giving the pressure, the nucleus is not damaged. Okay. So see, in the synergids, the nucleus is towards the periphery and the vacuole is towards the top. Okay. Now, The tube nucleus will not fuse with the egg nucleus because of the vacuole. Now remember that this pollen tube have tube nucleus. So this, if I tell you this is a pollen tube, I'll describe you in the next picture. They have the tube nucleus here and the generative nucleus towards the top. Okay, so there is a chance that if the nucleus would have been in the outer side, then there is a chance that tube nucleus would have fused with the egg nucleus. To prevent that, it is designed that the vacuole is there so that the tube nucleus will not fuse with the egg nucleus. Okay, because of the presence of the vacuole. So what will happen once the pollen tube will reach here? Once the pollen tube will come here, there is a chance that the tube nucleus will fuse. This is a pollen tube coming up. So there is a chance that the tube nucleus will fuse with one of the synergid cells. Okay, when one of the synergid cells, these are the synergid cells, these are. So when tube nucleus will fuse with one of the synergid cell, the synergid cell degenerate. So here I am talking about only one synergid right now. One of the synergid cell will degenerate. Okay, and the second synergid will degenerate after fertilization. Clear? Here we are studying about the roles of each of the cells in the embryo sac. Okay. Now, the synergids bear filiform apparatus in the micropylar region. Filiform apparatus have several roles. What they are? They helps in the absorption and transportation of nutrients. Where they will bring the nutrient from? So, surrounding the embryo sac, I told you this is surrounding the embryo sac is the nucellus. This is the embryo sac, and surrounding the embryo sac is what? Nucellus. Okay, so this filiform apparatus, which is towards this side, which is towards the synergid. Okay, so this has filiform apparatus, and this filiform apparatus have several roles. They will absorb the nutrient from the nucellus and will transport to the growing embryo sac. Okay, it will helps in the growth of the pollen tube by releasing some chemicals. Okay, it acts as a shock absorber when there is a penetration. So pollen tube, when it will come and it will penetrate through the micropylar end, it absorbs the shock because this gives a lot of pressure to the micropylar region, so it absorbs the shock while the pollen tube tries to enter the embryo sac. Okay, these synergids will degenerate after the egg has been fertilized. Okay, one before fertilization, one after fertilization. Now another cell, which is the antipodal cell, which is in the callosal end. These antipodal cells also bring nutrients from the nucellus to the embryo sac. Next we come to post-pollination events, like when the pollen tube has started growing, then after that what happens? Now pollen tube will try to enter, like it will try to transfer the male gamete into the egg apparatus. Okay, so they enter through the micropylar end. Sometimes we see that the pollen tube forms, like only one pollen tube is formed. It is monosiphonous. Okay, sometimes it is seen that a pollen produces only one tube. Sometimes it's seen that one pollen produces multiple tubes known as polysiphonous. Okay, so monosiphonous, like it is very common one, and the polysiphonous are present in, say for example, cucurbitaceae. Okay, so this, look here, just to give the idea that they enter through the micropylar end. Okay, when they enter through the micropylar end, it is known as porogamy. When they enter through callosal end, see, when they enter through callosal end means through the breaking of the tissues of the integument, they enter from chalaza. Ultimately they have to enter through the micropylar end only, but they instead, look here, in this case they are not passing through the chalaza. Here they are passing through the chalaza and ultimately enter into the micropyle where the egg is located. Okay, another, it can be mesogamy also. Mesogamy means when they enter through the integuments. Okay, either the left integument or the right integument. When they enter through the integument, it is known as mesogamy, just to give you the idea. Now, in fertilization, what we see, this is a very important feature of angiospermic life cycle. So, out of the two sperms which are produced, one fertilizes the egg. Okay, one will fertilize the egg, and another will fertilize the egg. Okay, so two male gametes, gametes. One will fertilize the egg and it will form what? Zygote. The another will combine with secondary nucleus, which is in the center, and it will form what? Endosperm. The secondary nucleus is diploid. So this is 2n. It will, when one male gamete will combine, it will form 3n. Okay, n, n. Okay, another male gamete will combine here n. So it will form what? 2n. Clear? So here we can see that, two times fertilization is occurring. So this is known as double fertilization. Okay. Now the fertilized zygote will develop into the embryo. Okay. The primary endosperm nucleus after division will give rise to endosperm. This endosperm is rich in nutrients which will provide nutrients to the developing embryo. Okay. So we saw that the tube nucleus will fuse with one of the synergid and will degenerate. Okay, pollen tube will then release two male gametes. Of this, one male gamete will do this function and another male gamete will do this function. The fusion is known as syngamy. So what we see that this is again, I have shown here that it enters to the micropylar end, which is known as sporogamy. Entering through the micropylar end is known as sporogamy. Okay, so major events are what? Development of endosperm, embryo, seed, it will form ovule, and development of fruit from ovary. Next, we need to know about the three different types of endosperm development. So it has been divided into three categories: nuclear, cellular, and halobial. So nuclear endosperm is when the first few divisions when the first and subsequent divisions of the primary endosperm nucleus are not followed by wall formation. There will be no wall formation in the first few divisions. Okay, this is nuclear endosperm and seen in coconut. Just to have the idea, okay. Now cellular endosperm is what? When the first and all subsequent division of the primary endosperm nucleus are followed by wall formation. There will be the wall formation in the subsequent steps. So nuclear did not have the wall formation and cellular endosperm have the wall formation in the first and all subsequent divisions. The third one is the halobial form, where what we see that the first division of the primary endosperm nucleus result in the wall formation. So see the formation of transverse wall, there is a small chalazial end and the large micropylar end. Okay, the chalazial end will not divide further and the micropylar end will have free nuclear division. Okay, so nuclear division will be there in the micropylar end and then there will be the wall formation. Okay. So these are the different types of endosperm development. Next we come to post-fertilization event, which is the development of embryo. So this is the formation of the embryo, which is the post-fertilization event, and we see that there are two basic developmental patterns in the embryogenesis. So what is that? It is axial patterning and radial patterning. So what is axial patterning? Axial patterning is what? The root shoot development, apical basal axis formation. Okay, so axial patterning is what? That the shoot apical meristem is at one end. Okay, look here in the picture. Just think that this is axial, which is apical and basal axis formation. So apical, the shoot apical meristem is at one end of the axis and the root apical meristem is at another. Here is root apical meristem, I write RAM. Here is shoot apical meristem, which is at one end. Okay, shoot apical meristem will form what? It will form the shoot. Okay, there are cotyledons which are attached just below. This is shoot apical meristem and the cotyledons are just attached below the shoot apical meristem. Okay, next is the hypocotyle region, which is followed by like hypocotyle region, after which there is the root apical meristem, after which there is the root apical meristem. Okay, after the root apical meristem there is the root cap. I'll show you in the next picture. Next pattern of another pattern of development is what? It is the radial patterning. Radial patterning, what we see that it produces three concentric rings of tissues which are arranged along the radial axis. So three concentric rings are what? There is a vascular bundle in the middle which is surrounded by what? A layer known as cortex. This cortex is surrounded by the outermost layer which is protective in nature is epidermis. Okay. So this is the radial patterning. Now we will study and focus about the axial patterning, which is apical basal root shoot axis formation. So what we see that now embryogenesis in Arabidopsis we have to study in detail, from where the questions are framed. Lot of questions come from here. So what we see here that during the initial stage the zygote first shows asymmetrical division. The zygote undergoes asymmetrical division where it will form apical cell and basal cell. This apical and basal cell, this is the asymmetric division. Okay, now this apical cell and basal cell will form what? They will form the axial patterning. They will show axial patterning. Okay, that is the root shoot axis formation, which is also said to be as axial polarity formation. Okay, the small cell which is formed here, the small cell which is formed, has cytoplasmic, this has dense cytoplasm. Okay, and this will give rise to what? Embryo. Okay. Now here we see that the small cell which will form the embryo, how it will form the embryo, it will undergo two longitudinal division, okay, and one transverse division. So two longitudinal division and one transverse division, which will give rise to the formation of an octant stage. Octant stage is what? The globular stage. Very important. So the first stage which is formed is the globular stage. How it is formed by? It is formed by two longitudinal division and one transverse division, which will form the octant globular stage. The larger basal cell, it has a very big vacuole. Okay, this larger basal cell is located to which end? It is located to the micropylar end. Okay, to the micropylar end. Here there is no longitudinal division. There are all divisions are transverse or horizontal divisions. Okay, now this will give rise to what? This will give rise to suspensor cell. I'll show you the picture in the next few slides. It will give rise to suspensor cell. This suspensor cell, what is the role? This suspensor cell will attach itself to the embryo. Okay. Look here in this picture that the larger basal cell will show transverse division. Okay. They are located near the micropylar end and they become hostorial. That means they suck the nutrient from the outer wall and provide it to the embryo. Okay, so the basal cell, I'll look here in this picture. Now I'll describe you step by step. First look at here. So see, here is the asymmetric distribution, the larger basal cell and the smaller one at the top. This smaller one will form the embryo. I'll come to it. The basal cell will form into 5 to 7 layers of cells, and the look in this picture that this suspensor cell is from the basal cell. The end of the basal cell will form what? It will form hostorium. Okay, I've written already. It will form hostorium, which will suck the nutrients from the outer layer and will transfer to the growing embryo. Okay, the end of the suspensor cell, which is close to the embryo, is known as hypophysis. Okay, the one end is the hostorium. The another end of the suspensor is hypophysis. This hypophysis will form the root cap. Please remember this. What is the fate of hypophysis? It will form the root cap. So this hypophysis will form what? This hypophysis will form two important type of tissues. What is that? Number one, it will form columella. Where is columella located? Columella is located in the center of the root. Another type of tissue it will form, or the another type of layer it forms, is known as quiescent center. Okay, I'll tell you what quiescent center is. So here see, this is the quiescent center and this is the root cap. Columella and quiescent center, which are formed by what? They are formed by hypophysis. Clear? So in the last stage, what we studied, that there is the formation of octant globular embryo. So once the octant stage is formed, then we see that the embryo divides into three regions. Okay, the embryo divides into three domains. What are the three domains? The apical region, the central region, and the basal region. Okay, the apical region, we see, so we see that this basal means what I meant. So this is the octant stage of embryo. We see that the apical and central cell, which is the part of the embryo only, and the basal one, I'm not connecting with the embryo. The basal part is coming from what? The basal part is from the suspensor region. Okay, suspensor region. Okay, the basal part of the suspensor region, it will form what? The apical part will form what? It will form shoot apical meristem and cotyledon. Okay, and the central part of the embryo, it will form what? It will form the hypocotyle and the root apical meristem. And I'm writing RAM, root apical meristem. And the basal part, which is the part of the suspensor which is located towards the embryo. Okay, one is haustorium, another one is hypophysis. This hypophysis, what it will form? It will form the quiescent center and the root cap. Clear? Please remember the fate of each of the cells. Okay. Now, this octant stage, which is the globular stage, the shape of the globule will, the globular shape will be lost as the cotyledons begins to form. What are cotyledons? These cotyledons are the first leaves. Okay. Now, after the octant stage, we see that there is a radial patterning which also starts. We see that the top and bottom halves of the embryo proper corresponds to the apical and central domain, which we discussed already. Now we need to know that the radial pattern, it starts in the octant embryo. Okay, it starts in the octant embryo. In the octant embryo, there will be the transverse division, which forms the three kinds of regions. Okay, three regions will be formed. What they are? Protoderm, which is the outermost. The middle will be the ground meristem, and the procambium, which is the innermost. Okay, the protoderm will form the outer protective epidermis, middle ground meristem will form the cortex and endodermis, and the procambium will form the vascular cambium, which is xylem and phloem, and the vascular cambium and the primary vascular tissue. Vascular tissue is the xylem and phloem. Next, we come to the discussion of dicot embryo and monocot embryo. We see that in dicot embryo, two cotyledons are formed, which we know from the very beginning, from our childhood, that these dicots have two cotyledons, and this will give rise to the embryo with bilateral symmetry. Okay, the embryo will have bilateral symmetry in the dicot. So we are doing the symmetry also, which is also the topic in our syllabus. Okay, so dicot embryo will show bilateral symmetry, and they will then develop the heart-shaped appearance. Okay, there are some hormones named as auxin. Okay, they mediate the transition from radial to bilateral symmetry. Okay, so radial to bilateral symmetry is due to the hormone named auxin. Clear? A typical embryo, dicot embryo, will show the embryonal axis and two cotyledons will be there. Okay, the portion of the embryonal axis above the level of cotyledon is known as epicotyle. Okay, which will form or which will terminate into plumule. Okay, below the cotyledon is hypocotyle, which will terminate into root tip or radicle. And the root tip is covered with root cap. Clear? Now we need to know about the monocot embryo also. that monocot embryo has only one cotyledon, this is we know, and this one cotyledon is known as scutellum. Okay, see the scutellum is situated in this region, see this one. This is scutellum, which is located towards one side. Okay, we see that this they also have the embryonal axis, okay, and has the radical and root cap. The root cap is enclosed in a sheath known as coleorhiza, and the shoot cap and the shoot apex is enclosed in a coleoptile. We have discussed this when we were doing the plant hormone class. Okay, that the shoot are enclosed in coleoptile and the root are enclosed in coleorhiza. See, if this is radical, which is shoot, it is enclosed in coleorhiza. Sorry, radical, which is root, which is it is enclosed in coleorhiza, and plumule, which are the shoots, it is enclosed in coleoptile. Okay, the portion of the embryonal axis above the level of scutellum is epicotyle. I will show you the picture of epicotyle. Look here, the epicotyle is above the root. Okay, this is the epicotyle region. So the region which is going downward, which is above the root, is hypocotyle. Okay, and this epicotyle region is, this epicotyle is located above the scutellum. Okay, above the cotyledon is epicotyle and near to the root is hypocotyle. Okay, this is a kind of germination. Clear? Now see, this is a monocot plant, this is a dicot plant. The towards the shoot is epicotyle, this is plumule. Okay, and towards the root is hypocotyle. Clear? Now one important thing I would like to tell you, that a seed has three important parts: a dormant embryo, a storage tissue, and the seed coat. The storage tissue is the endosperm, okay, and the seed coat are the integuments. In some plants, the endosperm is retained as a storage tissue. Okay, they are not used up. All of the endosperm is not used up in the growth of the seed. Okay, so what they are, what kind of plants where the endosperm is retained? They are wheat, maize, barley. Okay, in some plants, endosperm is more or less used up to put storage chemicals in the embryo itself. Okay, so embryo needs the storage chemicals. So all of the endosperm is used up to put the storage chemicals in the embryo. So there is no endosperm left in the seed. Okay, this is known as non-endospermic seed or non-albuminous seed, which are pea, groundnut, bean. So in some plants, say for example, the mother are very caring. They pack the foods with the seed. So whenever you will need them, you eat them. Okay, so when the food is packed, when the endosperm is packed, then it is said to be as albuminous seed. Okay, this is they are seen in monocots mainly. Clear? Another important thing we need to know about is parthenocarpy. Parthenocarpy is a formation of fruit without fertilization. When the fertilization will not happen, that means there is no seed formation. Okay, there is seedless fruit is known as parthenocarpy. Remember, these types of question, the match the following comes a lot. Okay, the formation of seedless fruit is parthenocarpy. Okay, so fruits are formed as a result of ovary development, where there will be pollination will be there, but there will be no fertilization. That means there will be the growth of the pollen tube, but there will be no fusion of male and female gamete. It is seen in orchids. Okay, another in grapes, it is seen that the fruits are formed as a result of fertilization still occurs. Okay, but the embryos are aborted. Okay, the embryos are aborted. It is seen in grapes. So parthenocarpid fruits can be artificially also be developed by the hormones auxin and gibberellin. Okay, this forms what? Seedless grapes and oranges. Another very important topic known as apomixis. So in apomixis, what we see that there is no seed formation. So previously it was also used, or it can be named as vegetative reproduction. In vegetative reproduction, we see that there is no there is so in apomixis there is asexual reproduction through seeds. Remember this. There is asexual reproduction. In parthenocarpy, what we saw, there is no formation of seeds, but here this is asexual reproduction through seeds. Okay, now how this happens? Now remember, this apomixis is a type of asexual reproduction. Very important. Okay, and the synonym is vegetative propagation. Okay. Now this process occurs in flowering plant through many different mechanisms. Okay, what they are? So at first, we need to know about the little uh, about what apomixis is. So the apomictic embryo, it increases the number of embryos inside the seed. Okay, that means the number of embryos are increased in the seed. So there, some seeds are formed by fertilization, some seeds are formed without fertilization. So there will be many kinds of embryos are developed. Some are fertilized or some are not fertilized. Okay, it increases the uh, number of embryos in the seed, so the chances of fertilization increases. Okay, so when more than one embryo occurs, it is known as polyembryony. So it is seen in citrus, opuntia. So when you will plant the seed of the citrus, onion and all that, you will find that from one seed many plants come out. So this is because they have many embryos in a single seed. This condition is known as polyembryony. Now, these apomixes are of several types. They are like, so before doing this slide, we will first discuss about another slide. So see, this apomixis can be divided into, this apomixis was a type of asexual reproduction, okay, uh, or asexual propagation. So they can be divided into non-recurrent apomixis and recurrent apomixis. In non-recurrent apomixis, what we see that the megaspore mother cell, which is MMC, they undergo a type of meiotic division, okay, and the haploid embryo sac. Now there is a difference between embryo sac and embryo. Okay, embryo forms after the fertilization. Embryo will form into seed, and embryo sac is the female gametophyte. Clear? Now, this megaspore mother cell will form the embryo sac. Okay, and this embryo sac, look here, the meiosis has occurred, embryo sac is haploid, there is no fusion. The egg formed into embryo. Okay, when the egg formed, or when the embryo arised from the egg, it is known as haploid parthenogenesis. Okay, this is known as haploid parthenogenesis, when the embryo arised from egg without fertilization. Now here we see that when the embryo arised from any other female gametophyte, okay, when any other cell of female gametophyte except the egg cell, it is known as haploid apogamy. So remember, when the word gamy is there, then this is haploid. So gametophytes are haploid, sporophytes are diploid. When the word gamy is there, it means that is haploid. Okay, and parthenogenesis also will produce the haploid embryo. Now coming to the recurrent apomixis, we know that archisporial cell will form the male gametophyte and female gametophyte both. Okay, so here what we see, that when the archisporial cell will undergo, or here there will be reduced meiosis. Meiosis is not completed, so there is no formation of the haploid. So archisporial is 2n. Embryo sac will also be 2n because the meiosis is reduced. Okay, meiosis is not completed. Okay, so here what we see, I'm sorry, it will be unreduced meiosis. Unreduced meiosis means meiosis is not completed properly. Okay, this unreduced meiosis, that means that a haploid, embryo cannot be formed, so embryo here will be diploid. So diploid embryo formation from the archisporial cell is diplospory. Okay, and the diploid embryo formation from the non-archisporial cell is known as apospory. Please remember, apospory and diplospory. Haploid apogamy. Apo means, remember, whenever it's apo means egg is not involved. Remember, when it is gamy, it is haploid. When it is spory, it is diploid. And when it is the word apo, that means egg is not involved. Some other cell are involved. Clear? Now look here again, I have made a chart for your easiness. So third type is adventive embryony. This adventive embryony, we see that the embryos are formed directly from unreduced nucellus cells. Okay, they are formed from nucellus cells or integuments. See, they are formed from nucellus or integument of the ovule, then it is known as adventive embryony. Clear? This adventive embryony is also called to be as sporophytic apomixis. They seem little confusing, but when we will solve the questions, then this will seem easier. So apospory was, apo means what? The egg is not involved. Okay, so they are formed from nucellus or ovule, but since here, see the difference, here it is the formation of embryo. Okay, formation of embryo from diploid sporophytic tissue, and here it's the formation of embryo sac. Okay, when it is the embryo sac formation, it is apospory. Both are 2N. But when it is embryo sac formation, it is apospory. When it is just the embryo, it is adventive embryony. Just see the name, then you will remember. Embryony will form embryo. Okay, apogamy we studied that here apo means egg cell is not involved. Okay, some other cells are involved in the formation of embryo sac. Since the gamete is there, it will be haploid. Parthenogenesis is what? Is the formation of embryo, and this parthenogenesis we see that here also there is the haploid embryo which is formed. Clear? Now we will solve few questions related to it. Which one of the following statements is wrong? The megasporophyte develops within the megasporangium. Yes, we discussed this. They develops in the megasporangium, and microsporophyte develops in the microsporangium. Megasporocyte undergoes meiosis to produce 4 haploid megaspores. Yes, 4 are produced, then 3 degenerates and 1 become functional megaspore. Correct. All the 4 megaspore undergo several mitotic division to form female. No, only 1 undergoes several mitotic division and the 3 degenerates. We discussed the monosporic type. Okay. Female gametophyte is haploid. Yes, the gametophyte, be it female, be it male, they are haploid. So 3 is the wrong one. Next. Sperm cell. Sperm cell also said to be as male gamete. Behavior during double fertilization in Arabidopsis can be stated as follows. Find the incorrect statement. Pollen tube burst and discharge the sperm cell. Yes, we discussed. Sperm cell produced pollen tubes and enter into the female gametophyte. Okay, so sperm cell produce pollen tube. We did not see that the male gametes are producing the pollen tubes. Male gametes are not producing the pollen tubes. Okay, pollen tubes are formed from the they are formed from the germ pore. Okay, from the intine layer they are formed. From the intine layer they are extended and forming the pollen tubes. So sperm cells are not forming it. This is the incorrect one. The receptive antipodal cells break down when the pollen tube enters the male female gametophyte. Okay, so antipodal cell does not break down when the pollen tube enter. They are the synergids which break down when the pollen tube enter. So 3 is also wrong and 2 is also wrong. Okay, so they are our answers. So in CSIR it is given 2, 3. One sperm nucleus fuses with the egg cell and other fuses with the central cell. Yes, the one which central cell will form endosperm, and the one with the sperm nucleus, it will form what? It will form the egg. Sorry, it will form the embryo. Okay, this is known as double fertilization. So answer is 2 and 3. So these actinomorphic flowers, so flowers can be asymmetrical, actinomorphic or zygomorphic. Actinomorphic flowers are the flowers which possess a radial symmetry. Radial symmetry means they can be cut into 2 equal halves along any plane. So this is showing radial symmetry, which can be cut into 2 equal halves along any plane. Okay, they are seen in Hibiscus rosa ixora. Okay, and here in zygomorphic we see that which is seen in Crotalaria caesalpina pisum, they can be cut into equal halves only by the medial cut. Okay, through the central axis. This is known as zygomorphic. So this is also one topic in your syllabus. This actinomorphic is represented by the floral formula plus, which is inside the circle, and zygomorphic is represented by the percentage sign. Clear? So here we end the class of first topic. So I'll come with the next topic, that is the flower development. Okay, thank you. I hope you all have understood the lecture. So if any problem you will face, you can write in the comment box or you can give me a text, and also solve the questions. I'll solve it with you later, and you try to solve it. If there is any question, you can post the questions and you can ask me your doubts in the comment box. Thank you.